Hi, it's time. It's time for the new segment. Now, this new segment is simply called Movies of the Ages. These are basically, this is a new segment that's going to focus on movies or series of movies or, even occasionally TV shows that I feel people should have seen or watched or at least be aware of. And in light of the fact that apparently they're now making a new Godzilla film, our first topic is going to start on a high note. We're going to talk about a little film released by a Japanese company called Gojira. Stay tuned. So, here we are. Now, in order to understand the importance of the seminal 1954 film Gojira, you have to understand a little history. Now, in 1945, or should I say 1941, December 7th, 1941, / December 8th in Japan, the U.S. was bombed by Japan, Pearl Harbor. Basically, 60 to 75% of our naval forces were all in Pearl Harbor. And they had the shit bombed out of them, okay? Most of our forces were lost. The forces that weren't lost were so damaged that there was nothing they could do. It was a masterful military stroke, except Japan made two serious mistakes. First, they underestimated the resolve of the American people. Second, they definitely underestimated the resolve of the American industrial complex, okay? See, the thing is Japan, the reason they wanted to, they invaded China in World War II and parts of Russia and Korea and that type of stuff, is because Japan is a resource-poor country, okay? They do the best with what they have, but they don't have a lot of land to be able to do a lot of stuff with. So they're very good at being very economical. So basically, if their navy had been destroyed, Japan would have been fucked. But, I mean, we had a huge industrial complex. And it was very easy for us to switch quite a few of our heavy industries from making tractors and plows into making bombers and ship parts and putting them on trains and sending them to California and building new ships. Very easy. And Japan did surprise attack us, even though there were rumblings that there was going to be an attack was imminent. And basically, we got into World War II. Up to that point, we had been trying to stay out of World War II. We had tried desperately. We had tried very desperately. But as Admiral Yamamoto, who actually spent quite a bit of time in the U.S., even studied in the U.S., he said that America is like a sleeping giant. Unless you can finish them off in one fatal fell blow, when they wake up, they're going to just crush us. And he was right. Yamamoto was assassinated for basically saying, I told you guys so, this is a fucked up idea. And basically, we proceeded to fight Japan. Initially, we were getting our ass kicked, but as we got our shit together, we began to basically destroy their destroyers, sink their ships. The morale of the Japanese army began to center on holding a series of islands. You know, Iwo Jima, all that type of stuff. And basically, we fought. But we had another weapon in our arsenal that we had been working on in Arizona and New Mexico. A weapon that arguably should never have been created or used. And in 1945, unfortunately for the world, we did use these weapons. And this leads us to the making of this film. In 1945, we dropped 2 bombs Two bombs on Japan: Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, Hiroshima is still kind of, and Nagasaki eventually came back, but it was like some weapons are too horrible to use. Some things are just too far. And that brings us to this film, Godzilla. Now, Godzilla is a film that was basically made by a studio that made propaganda films. That made propaganda films during World War II for the Japanese. And this studio is called Toho. Now, Toho was like, had some pretty heavy duty directors behind them. You may have heard of some of them, or at least one of the major heavy duty directors from Toho, called Akira Kurosawa. He released such great films as Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, Red Murder. So, Toho basically released a film in the wake of these bombings that told a tale about, something that was created from the hubris of mankind, the arrogance that we sometimes have in regards to our technology. And this tale was about a gigantic monster that ravages Japan. This monster that was forged from nuclear fallout. The origin story of Godzilla is that at a little island test site, a fictional island test site, Bikini Atoll, a nuclear bomb goes off. And a prehistoric creature that, through some strange alchemy, has survived is exposed to this radiation. And instead of dying, it mutates. It becomes a mutation. Something more than it was. It becomes a monster. A monster that is unstoppable. Bombs do nothing. Tanks do nothing. Planes do nothing. Electricity? This monster laughs in the face of electricity. And it loves destroying Tokyo. Tokyo, Japan. This monster really hates Tokyo. Okay. This monster was called Gojira. In America, they called it Godzilla. In Europe, they called it Gigantus. Because apparently Godzilla was too risque. So let's get down to the plot of Godzilla, the very first Godzilla film. Basically, the movie opens with a series of incidences that are very odd that people kind of pass off as being kind of what I should rather say, off counter. Like a fishing vessel, a Japanese fishing vessel is attacked. And the village elder says, well, it was done by Godzilla. Or Gojira. And the dudes are like, what the hell are you talking about? Gojira? Jesus. You don't know what you're talking about. Islands are stomped. Giant footprints are found that are radioactive, but no one can put all the pieces together because it's too fantastic. Eventually, though, Godzilla makes landfall and basically starts tearing shit up. And this is where things get awesome. The Japanese military scrambles. They've got tanks, planes, jets, all types of stuff. And none of it does jack shit because Godzilla is not just a monster. He's a force of nature. Okay? He's a force of nature. Keep that in mind. Godzilla is a force of nature. And basically, Godzilla fucks everything up. He destroys the pagoda. And notice in every single Godzilla film, and in quite a few subsequent kaiju films, the pagoda is destroyed. I don't know what Toho has against pagodas, but they just love destroying that pagoda. They just, every Godzilla film, the pagoda's gonna get destroyed, except for that shitty 1998 film. But anyway, this film, just the destruction, and there's nothing these people can do. I mean, people are injured, they're dying. I mean, and Godzilla is relentless in his destruction. Eventually, he leaves Tokyo after just destroying it, and, goes back into the sea. At this point, the Japanese are desperate. They need to destroy this monster. So they go to a guy, to a scientist by the name of, oh, Jesus, Daisuke Serizawa. And basically, he's creating a special weapon called Oxygen Destroyer. It basically just renders all the oxygen underwater gone, destroying all the fish, all the sea life. Now, for Japan, this is a terrifying prospect because Japan is very dependent on the sea. Most nations are very dependent on the sea. And Oxygen Destroyer destroys all oxygen in the water, which is terrifying, including the oxygen in the tissues, and is very dangerous. Okay, it's the equivalent of a nuclear bomb in the movie's plot, because it's a weapon that's so terrible it should not be in existence. So eventually Godzilla comes, and he's about to destroy Japan, to attack Japan yet again. Daisuke Serizawa uses Oxygen Destroyer, and they destroy Godzilla. And Daisuke Serizawa comes to the conclusion that this weapon is so horrific it should not be used. So he commits suicide as well, because he has the formula in his head so that it can never be used again. Ever. Ever. And that is the end of our story. I mean, you see a lot of destruction, a nice monologue where they talk about some weapons are too horrific to be used. But it introduces the world to one of the best, and in my opinion, the best monster in existence, Godzilla, which is, once again, a force of nature. Which leads me to the second part of this vid, which is coming up next. Okay, and we're back. So that leads me to, that was the past of Godzilla. Now, during the intervening years, we saw numerous entries into the Godzilla franchise done by Toho Studios. We saw Gigantus Returns, or Godzilla Returns, which was the direct sequel. In this film, we see a second Godzillasaurus, mutated, fighting another monster called Anzilla, or Anguirus. Anguirus would become a mainstay as one of the monsters in Toho's pantheon of kaiju, which is Japanese for god beast or god monster. Okay? And we'd see other monsters come and go. Even Godzilla fight King Kong, which is one of the most terrible entries into the series, in my opinion. Godzilla come back, leave, and Godzilla would change his roles. Ironically, as the U.S. changed its roles in Japan, he would go from being a villain to being a destroyer to being a force of nature to being a good guy to being a protector to them then changing him entirely into more of a destructive force. Once again, a force of nature that has a consciousness, that has a idea of what he's doing. And they would finally kill off Godzilla permanently, yet again, in 2000 something, with Godzilla versus Destroya, or Destoria, which once again culminated with an awesome battle between Godzilla, his son, and a monster that was mutated from the remnants of the oxygen destroyer. Yes, Godzilla meets his old enemy yet again. This is one of the top films in the Godzilla franchise. If you never have seen a Godzilla film, watch Destroya. Godzilla vs. Destroya. It's a great film. You will never, you will understand why Godzilla fans like Godzilla from watching this film, because it is a proper send-off to Godzilla. Now, they made other films after this. They made Godzilla, the final Godzilla film, which was kind of a send-up to Destroy All Monsters, where Godzilla literally fights all the other Toho monsters. All of them. Culminating with a fight against one of his oldest nemesis, King Ghidorah. Or Gojira. Doesn't really... Whatever works for you. Ghidorah, whatever. But the reason I have this second part is to talk about the one American entry into the Godzilla franchise that I like to call a turd. Directed by Roland Emmerich, produced by some asshole named Tatopoulos. This film is a fail in the Godzilla franchise, and an unnecessary fail. It's called Godzilla 98. And it is a piece of shit. It starred Matthew Broderick, and it basically failed the Godzilla test. See, Godzilla is a force of nature, okay? Simple as that. He's a force of nature, okay? He's not something that the military can take down. Basically, having a traditional Japanese Godzilla film with the military being able to do jack shit about Godzilla is like having a disaster film where the military is going to do shit about a volcano. There ain't shit anyone can do to stop a volcano from erupting, or an earthquake from happening, or a typhoon, or a tidal wave. The only thing you can do is ride it out, okay? That's basically the strength of the Godzilla franchise, is that we can't do shit to stop it. It's coming. The only thing we can do is prepare for it. And that's what makes it awesome. Now, seeing them try is awesome. You know, Mecha Godzilla and Kiryu and Mogura and, you know, the Super Zero X. But ultimately, Godzilla can't be stopped. Except for the American shitty Godzilla. All you need is some jets with missiles. And you can take down this hermaphrodite lays eggs Godzilla. So, oh snap, I gotta wrap this up. So, in conclusion, this film, you know, the future of the Godzilla franchise is leading up to the new Godzilla that's coming out this year, I believe in March or April. And it's being made by an American director. Now, I saw the teaser trailer, and I have to say that I hope this guy doesn't go the typical American bullshit monster movie route, which is one of the reasons I don't like American monster movies that have this trope. Our military can destroy it. No, not Godzilla. No. I tend to go for the monster movie trope where, did we actually win? Is it actually over? Can we actually fight this? I like those tropes, okay? So, hopefully we'll get that in this next film. I'm cautiously optimistic. The guy has pretty much close to the same roar that Godzilla should have. Hopefully this monster will breathe fire. Thank God. Radioactive fire that just destroys everything. And the military, the American military, will get its ass kicked because you can't fight Godzilla. It's a moot point. It's like trying to fight a solar flare. There ain't shit you gonna do about a fucking solar flare. So hopefully this movie will be good. Now, I will leave a link in the description, a feed in the description, not feed, description, where you can leave suggestions for movies you'd like for me to cover, or movie series you'd like for me to cover in this new segment that I'm trying out. So keep up the suggestions, keep them up. I'll try my best. I would really like for this to go off because these are some good movies. These are some good franchises, and people need to be aware of them. Have a nice day.